Hello, today I'll be discussing on econometrics, and in this lecture I try to shed some light on econometrics. What is econometrics? So this is an introduction to econometrics. Okay. Now, econometrics means measurement in economics. This is too broad a definition to be of any use because to measure the GDP, to measure the unemployment, exchange rate, and other macroeconomic variables, econometrics is used. So this is too broad a definition to be of any use. If we simplify and and with a simplified definition, I can say that the application of statistical and mathematical methods to the analysis of economic data with the purpose of giving empirical content to economic theories and verifying them or refuting them. Well, so econometrics is nothing but a statistical and mathematical methods. We can apply the statistical and mathematical methods to analyze economic data. To analyze the economic data, and there is a purpose. And what is the purpose? We should have the empirical content to the economic theory. Empirical content is a important point here. We must remember empirical content should have. Econometrics consider the empirical content to economic data, economic theory. And an econometrics verifies them. So econometrics is a just the application of statistical and mathematical methods. So statistics and mathematics. What is mathematical economics? Difference between the mathematical economics and econometrics, you should have a clear idea. Mathematical economics is nothing but the application of mathematics on economic theory. But in econometrics, there should be empirical content to the economic theories. It is the application of statistics and mathematics to analyze the economic data with the purpose of giving empirical content to the economic theories and verifying them. Okay, so here is the difference between the mathematical economics and econometrics. The application of statistical tools to economic data has a very long history. It has a very long history. Stigler in 1954 notes that the first empirical demand schedule was published in 1699 by Charles Dehaene. And the first modern statistical demand studies were made by Rodolfo Ini, an Italian statistician, in 1907. The main impetus to the development of econometrics, however, came with the establishment of Econometric Society. The main impetus, the main momentum to the development of econometrics came with the establishment of the Econometric Society. in 1930 and the publication of journal Econometrics in January 1933. In January 1933, with the publication of the journal Econometrics, the momentum to the development of econometrics came into the scenario. Okay. Now, the mathematical formation of economic data. At first, you should have a mathematical formation of economic data, and then we should proceed what is econometrics. So, mathematical formation of economic data, suppose demand law. What is the demand law? You know, the quantity demanded and the price of the product. The relationship between the quantity demanded and the price of the product is called the demand law. And there is an inverse relationship. It is known to all of you that demand law is the inverse relationship between the quantity demanded and the price of the particular product. So if we can have a mathematical formulation of this demand law in this way. Q is the quantity demanded and P is the price level. Q is the quantity demanded of apples, and it is the price of the apples. Alpha is the intercept term and beta is the slope term. Okay, so the curve, it is a linear equation. It is a linear mathematical formulation. And here the demand law is a non-linear formulation. It is in the non-linear formulation. In both the cases, beta is less than 0 because demand law represents the inverse relationship between the quantity demanded of a particular product with the price of the particular product. Okay. So I hope you understand what is the mathematical formation of economic data. Now, the model. A model is a simplified representation of real world process. A model is a simplified representation. Okay? It is a simplified representation. Look, with an example, we can clarify it very well. Suppose quantity demanded of apples and price of apples. Quantity demanded of apples depends on price of apples. So here is an inverse relationship, but quantity demanded of apples does not depend on price of apples only. There are other factors, number of factors. For example, income of consumers. Income of consumers is one of the important factors on which the quantity demanded of apples depends on. And increase or decrease in price of oranges. The quantity demanded of apples depends on the price, increase in price or decrease in price of oranges. So here is the relationship. And there is another factor, the diet consciousness. Whether the customers are diet conscious or not, it should be considered. If you like to consider the quantity demanded of apples, the customers can eat other things when they are not conscious about their health. They are not diet conscious. And there are many other factors we can consider. There are many other factors we can consider to shed some light on the quantity demanded of apples. Okay, a model, I have mentioned that a model is a simplified representation of real world process. This is a real world process. This is a real world process, but it is not simplified. There are a number of factors. I have mentioned here four, but there are many other factors on which the quantity demanded of apples depends. Now, the choice of a simple model to explain complex world phenomena leads to two criticisms. There are two criticisms. Why should we use the simple model to explain a complex real world? So criticism must be there, and there are two criticisms. Suppose one, the model is oversimplified. If you consider my example, then you can find here the quantity demanded of apples depends only on the price, but there are many other factors. Diet consciousness, income of consumers, increase or decrease in prices of oranges, and many other factors on which the quantity demanded of apples depends upon. But we consider only the price of apples, consider only the price of apples. So it is oversimplified. So in this context, to this criticism, that is the model is oversimplified, one can argue that it is better to start with a simplified model and progressively construct more complicated models. Cookman, 1957, said in such a way that one should start with a simplified model and progressively construct more complicated model. And there is another criticism. The assumptions are unrealistic. The assumptions are unrealistic. Look, here you can find that quantity demanded of apples depends on the price of apples. So this is the these assumptions are unrealistic, because if you consider that the quantity demanded of apples depends on the diet consciousness, depend, depends on the diet consciousness, then it would be a descriptively unrealistic, descriptively unrealistic. Here the Friedman's argument should be considered. Here we should consider the Friedman. So according to Friedman, the relevant question to ask about the assumptions of a theory is not whether they are descriptively realistic, for they never are, but whether they are sufficiently good approximation for the purpose at hand. And the questions can be answered by only seeing whether the theory works, which means whether it yields sufficiently accurate predictions. So this is the Friedman's quote. But the issue is which model is more useful for predicting the demand for apples. This issue can be decided only from the data we have and the data we can get. The data we can have and that the data we can get on the basis we can we can solve the issue. We can solve the issue. In my example, in our example, the inclusion of other variables such as income and price of apples in the model does not render the model more descriptively realistic. Even this model can be considered to be based on unrealistic assumption because it leaves out many other variables such as diet consciousness, health consciousness. So the issue can be solved on the basis of the data we can get or we can have. Now, economic model and econometric model. So, a set of assumptions that approximately describes the behavior of an economy is considered an economic. Economic model is a set of assumptions that approximately describes the behavior of an economy. On the other hand, an econometric model should have the following points. One is a behavioral equation. An econometric model should have a behavioral equation. What is the behavioral equation? Q equal to alpha plus beta p plus u is the behavioral equation. Here, Q is the quantity demanded. Here the apple is considered, and P is the price of apples, and U is the disturbance term. Other factors are here in U, So this is the behavioral equation. Q equal to alpha plus beta P plus U. And there is another point, a specification of the probability distribution of U. Expectation of U condition to the price of apple, expectation of U condition to the price of apple should be 0. Mean should be 0. Mean of U should be 0. And the variance of U should also should be constant. Variance of U should be constant. So this is the econometric model. So in this lecture, I try to simplify what is the econometric model and where does it belong, and this is the basic introduction to econometrics. So I hope you could understand this lecture, and it should be mentioned here that there are cross-section data, time series data, and panel data. And suppose you are collecting data across the districts, then it should be considered as a cross-section data. There is no, in a particular time you are collecting data. The time point is fixed. It is not. There is no variation. Then it should be considered as cross-section data. In econometrics, there are 3 types of data mainly. One is cross-section data, and another is time series data. Time series data means the time varies. You are collecting the GDP of a particular country over the period, suppose from 2000 to 2019. From 2019, you are collecting data, GDP, and then it should be considered time series data. And panel data means you are collecting data GDP, suppose from India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and you are collecting GDP from those countries. And also the time period varies from 2000 to 2019. Then it should be considered as a panel. So econometric model, we can use the time series data, cross-section data, and also the panel data. So I hope you could understand what is econometrics and what does it role, what does it role have. So I hope you enjoyed this lecture, and thank you for enjoying this.